Hello, everyone, and welcome to your virtual lesson for today. I'm Miss Constantine, and let's get started. All right, so we are jumping back into our history lessons. We have taken a little break from history to focus on the election and the election process. And now we're moving back to kind of where we left off. So it seems like a long time ago since we talked about the French and Indian War, but that's where we are today. So we are going to talk about the outcomes or what happened because of the French and Indian War and why the colonists are starting to get hunked off. So we're going to see the colonists are going to start to get more and more and more irritated with Great Britain until eventually it erupts into a giant war. Our lesson standard objectives today. Our objective is I can identify the outcomes of the French and Indian War. And our standard goes with why colonists are starting to rebel against the British. And that's what we're going to be talking about, the very beginning stages of this. So, what you'll need to do if you haven't done so already is download the outcomes of the French and Indian War note catcher or note outline into Notability. You probably want to have these notes ready and available as you watch this mini lesson. It'll just be a lot easier for you to do it as we go. And then there'll be a short exit ticket over this mini lesson. You'll submit your notes and complete your exit ticket. You can use your notes on your exit ticket as always. Dun, 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 let's go. Okay, so North America before and after the French and Indian War. So if we look here to our left, we can see right here in the red the 13 colonies, the original 13 colonies run by Great Britain. Spain is controlling Florida and some of the southern part of North America. And then this purple land right here, kind of a purplishy grayish, is French land. It's land known as New France. And this right here, this is what the French and Indian War was fought over. The French and the Indians were trying to keep the British colonists from coming over the mountains and settling in this land here. The French and the Indians had lived here together. They had a pretty positive relationship. They had a very, very profitable fur trade going on, and they did not want the British colonists to come over the Appalachian Mountains, move into this land, and ruin the happy thing they had going on. So it erupted in the French and Indian War, the French and the Indians versus the British colonists. However, the French and the Indians lose, and that land does become British land. So if we look at this map here on the right, we can see now Great Britain's land stretches not only right here in our original 13 colonies, but all the way to, what is this right here? Oh, the Mississippi River. Very good. So now Great Britain is going to control all of the land from the Atlantic Ocean to the Mississippi River, and Spain is going to be controlling the land right here. France is going to be kicked out of North America for the time being. So you can see they gained quite a bit of land from this war, the 13 colonies did, including right here where Indiana is. So this is how Indiana becomes part of the 13 colonies of British land, and then will eventually become part of the United States. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to do this outcomes chart. We're going to decide what effects the war had on the American colonists. So the first outcome is that the war cost a lot of money. Wars are very expensive. You have to pay for soldiers, supplies, weapons. You have to house the soldiers, feed the soldiers, give them a salary. So because war is so expensive, the outcome of this is that Great Britain begins to enforce old taxes and create new taxes for the colonists. So taxes are going to be an issue. Those colonists who were not paying their taxes to the British king before are definitely going to be forced to do so now, and the king is going to start to develop new taxes in order to bring in more money to pay off the debt from the French and Indian War. Another effect of the war outcome is Britain now owns the land all the way to the Mississippi River. Most of the colonists who live in that land, though, however, are forced to return to the original 13 colonies. Say what? Wasn't the point of fighting this war so the colonists could move over the Appalachian Mountains and settle along the Ohio River? Wasn't that the point? It was the point. And now the British, now we have won the war, the British have won the war, they are forcing many of the colonists who did move over the Appalachian Mountains and settle by the Ohio River back to the 13 colonies. The new British land is full of unhappy Native Americans who lost the war. The Native Americans don't really care that the war ended. They are still unhappy that these colonists are coming. They don't care that the French and the British signed a treaty. They're still angry. Therefore, the British send soldiers or redcoats to secure the land. So we're going to see British soldiers living in this new land along the Ohio River to protect, air quotes, protect the colonists from Native American attacks. So not only did they send British soldiers to live in the new land to secure it and protect the colonists from the Native American attacks, but they also issued something called the Proclamation of 1763. Proclamation of 1763. And we will dive deeper into that one in just a moment. So let's continue on our chart of the effects of the war. The French had to give up New France to the British, so the French lost all military power in North America. They are kicked out of North America military power-wise. Like they have no longer a strong military presence in North America. And finally, the effects of the war. The colonies fought together to beat the French. So most of the colonies didn't give a whole lot of hoot about the other colonies. They saw themselves as kind of independent from each other, like Virginia just kind of dealt with Virginia, same thing with the Carolinas. And then all of a sudden, after fighting a war where it's the 13 colonies versus a common enemy, we see the colonists learn to fight together and they start to become more unified. They start to learn how to work together as 13 colonies rather than independent little places just focusing on what's best for them and themselves. So this is a big step because the 13 colonies are definitely going to have to come together to fight the British. The British have the most powerful military in the world, and that's what's going to happen soon is they're going to take on the British king and his army. So this is a really good foreshadowing of the colonists going, yeah, we were pretty good when we all fought together. We should do that again. So, Proclamation of 1763. This is what I promised you we'd talk a little bit more about. So, a proclamation, to proclaim something is to say it with authority, to say this is how it shall be, this is what I demand. So, the Proclamation of 1763 is a demand from the king that shall be followed, shall not be broken. It is the law. And again, we are talking about this land right here. In red, here's the original 13 colonies. This is where everybody lived. Then they went whoop, whoop, whoop over the Appalachian Mountains here and began to settle along the Ohio River, honking off the French and Indians, resulting in a war between the French and the Indians against the British colonists. Same thing, you have this map on your notes. This shaded in area is the part of land that we are talking about, but this is the map that's on your notes just to remind you. It's going to be called the Indian Territory, and I think you're going to understand why in just a moment. So, the Proclamation of 1763. It established a new province in the land acquired from the French and Indian War. Colonists were not allowed to move onto the land west of the Appalachian Mountains. Say what? Colonists were not allowed to move onto the land that they just fought a battle, a war, not even a battle, many battles, a war to get. So the king is like, thanks for fighting in the war, appreciate it, super glad we got this land, but you can't live on it. And the colonists are like, excuse me, I have so many questions, I don't understand. We fought the war, we lost lives, we risked our lives, those of us who survived, all so we could have this land, and now you are telling us we can't live on it? They're angry. Colonists are very angry at the king for this proclamation. The king wanted to keep the colonists close to the coast to promote trade with Great Britain. If they got too far away from the Atlantic Ocean, they might not trade natural resources back to Great Britain, which Great Britain greatly needed. So it was kind of tricky that the king wanted to keep them close to the ocean to continue to have them to trade. He also wanted to limit westward expansion, this idea of moving and settling west of the Appalachian Mountains. And so he built several military forts to protect their interests in the fur trade as well. So the military forts were said they were built to protect the colonists from the Native Americans, but also they were there to protect the fur trade. So the British are going to strive to take over the fur trade that the French and the Indians once had, because it was pretty profitable for the French. They made pretty good money off of it, and the British are like, yeah, I'm going to need to take that over so we can make the money instead. As a result of this new land and the costs of building and staffing the forts and the huge debt from the French and Indian War, Britain decided to enforce old taxes and add some new taxes. We saw that in our outcomes chart. New taxes, and to make sure people are paying their old taxes. This war was very expensive, and taxes must be collected in order to pay off the debt. That is going to greatly honk off the colonists. So, if you remember at the very beginning, we're learning why the colonists are starting to get honked. They just fought a war in which they gained a lot of land, and now they're not even allowed to use that land, and they're paying taxes to pay off a debt from a war for land that they can't live on. Honk, honk. You see the honking off starting? I'm sure you do. Okay, thank you for watching this mini lesson today. So for your exit ticket, you're going to go to modules, and you're going to go to this week's module, November 9th through the 13th, under the date of November 9th and 10th, or 10th, depending on what day you're doing this. Please go to the Outcomes of the French and Indian War lesson. There you will submit your notes, and you will also find the link to complete the Outcomes of the French and Indian War exit ticket. As always, if you have any questions, please let us know, and we look forward to seeing you guys in class. Take care. Bye-bye.